quiet night. And it's funny, I keep feeling like I should be conserving water out here, but there really is just plenty between all the caches and cattle troughs and things. 7:10 and here comes the sun. It is going to get massively less pleasant here in a couple of minutes. And here's what my camp looks like in the daylight. As you can see, night hiking doesn't make me miss out much on the scenery here. It just makes it harder to follow what trail there is, which is generally a series of posts. You can just see one through the vegetation there. This is the sort of desert hiking that Jen absolutely hates. Not pretty, not interesting. I love desert hiking personally, but the thing is, you got to go into the hills. You know, the canyons and things tend to be where it really stands out. This is just tromping across cow fields. I pushed onto this wash last night that I could see on the satellite shot, figuring it would make for nicer camping. A little bit of vegetation, and that way I had some protection if the wind picked up. I didn't even blow up the air mattress last night. There wasn't much point. It's been so warm. Though it is actually supposed to get down below freezing for today and tomorrow per the last weather forecast I saw. But only a little bit, high 20s. Now I would have rather camped over there if I'd been able to see that, but couldn't see anything in the headlamp light. And trying to pick out the signs, like there's the next one I'm heading for, got really difficult in the dark. I was making notes on water caches and things this morning, and it looks like I basically have 60 miles of, for better or worse, more of the same. There are water caches. The water carries should be quite reasonable compared with what I've done in the past. It is relatively flat terrain, but you do end up going down into a lot of these little washes, which can slow down the pace a bit. Assuming nothing funny happens with my feet, etc., I'm still kind of counting on 2 full days and a partial, but we'll see. I'm basically making as many miles as I can. The bigger thing is, of course, kind of need to get to the monument in the daylight so I can get my finisher shot. If I just got one in the dark, that would be kind of like the people that take their Triple Crown finisher shot, you know, just in front of a car or something because I stopped at some random trailhead. So I'm kind of hoping for 2 25-ish days and a 10 maybe. Like I said, I'll push it as much as is reasonable. There's only so many hours of wandering around in the dark, crisscrossing, because, you know, I can be 30 feet over there and not be able to see the footpath like this. I did have a few coyotes last night, well, this morning actually, but mostly I was just hearing cows off in the distance. They mostly seem to be congregated around the water sources, which is why I got my water and then hiked on yesterday. There are actually notes saying, you know, please don't camp near any of the wells, etc. Technically, if it's just a bare box water cache, you can camp there. Personally, I have found stuff like that tends to lead to rodent issues and whatnot. I have always found that the more remote, dispersed the campsite, the less issues you have. And remember, I have spent years basically sleeping with my food in the tent, and I have not had rodents and whatnot digging through the sides. It does seem like the Park Service is starting to kind of get around to that. I would talk to a ranger sometime, and they were talking, oh, it was saguaro, you know, when I was on the AZT this spring. And they were saying they're actually recognizing that the more people you have in a campsite, the more little critters tend to be running around, you know, food scraps, etc. And the big predators tend to follow the little critters. Hence why you have so many bears and whatnot around all the shelters on the AT. I really do think one of the big pieces of advice for people who are terrified that bears are going to rip their face off in the wilderness is, when doing the AT, just avoid the shelters. You will avoid so many issues that way. So this is why I was aiming for a wash last night. You can spend a bunch of time clearing a little tent platform on terrain like this, but in general, I'll just push on until I can find something that's a little more dirt and a little less big rocks. I do seem to be suffering from a rather severe case of senioritis here. I keep switching around to different books, trying to find something I can just kind of sink my teeth into and cruise through this. And I'm just in that grumpy, everything is too slow, dragging, aka not really wanting to listen to audiobooks mode. And at the same time, without a big challenge, either right here or up ahead, pounding along to music has been of limited appeal as well. And I know it's just because I know I'm so close to being done. When I was on the AT, as I was getting close to Katahdin, I was talking with all sorts of people through 100 Mile Wilderness, etc. And pretty much everybody just couldn't wait to be done. They had enough energy to make it to Katahdin, but not a step behind. There were even some folks on the ECT that's where they called it. Versus, you know, I strolled over Katahdin feeling fine because I was excited for seeing what was up north, crossing the Canadian border, stuff like that. I didn't start really feeling tired and like it was time to end until I was on my way up to Meat Cove. It's just the whole watch pot never boils factor, I think. And here it is really hard not to just continually stare ahead. I have spent a good amount of time doing peaks and such down by the Mexican border. I've also, you know, obviously PCT, AZT. I did the first section of that desert trail that goes from Lake Ocotillo all the way up to Canada that's been forgotten, kind of similar to the Theodore Solomon Trail. You do see more Border Patrol activity down here. I have been woken up by, you know, helicopters buzzing over our campsites or gunfire off in the distance. But it's really less of a deal than you would think watching the news. Watching said news, you would think the border was just basically one long ongoing war zone, but it's generally pretty quiet. I have run over, you know, migrant paths and things like that. Again, never had any issue. When I used to park my vehicle down here to do peaks, I would actually leave water outside of it. There was a Sierra Clubber whose car was broken into one time, and the thought, at least at the time, was it was somebody who was kind of desperate for anything to drink out in a very desolate area. Somebody was even telling me about two women that had hiked the border wall, you know, basically from Texas out to the ocean. That one, I don't know. I generally stay further away from the border just to not have hassles from Border Patrol, etc. That one is somewhat tempting and seems like it has a little higher chance of less restful nights here and there. But we'll see. That one is at least on my radar at this point. Maybe after I do the whole AZT to Pacific Crest Trail connector. So I have another water cache in a couple of more miles. At that point, it's another 12 miles to the cache after that. And there's a couple of tanks and things mixed here and there. It is interesting how they're spacing the water cache boxes off the road. I just crossed pavement and the box is 0.1 this way. And here we go. So interestingly enough, it seems like I'm not that unusually late. Last year, 12:05 was the last person to sign in coming through here. I found 12:14 on some of the previous years. And yeah, it's been a few days. I've been following their footprints. It is fun looking back and finding other people that you've met. Pretty sure I met Alaska. I know I met A-Dub out near Breckenridge area, or a little before. Duck ran into twice. He was hiking with somebody else though. And of course Whitney and Swede, who they were the last through hikers I actually saw on trail. Oh, never mind, there are multiple ducks, because Ducks and Giggles were the ones that I met, both right after doing Rocky Mountain and then somewhere up in the San Juan mountainous areas. And I also chatted with those guys for a while. And then Bilbo, I know him and LJ from the PCT in 2020. I am pretty sure I would have gone crazy if I had tried to do this trail northbound. It felt too crowded up in Glacier as it was. Well, that is different. Old rail bed, I assume. Ran into a guy just out hiking back there. Thought I was hallucinating at first when I got sight of him. Didn't really expect people, considering this is kind of the middle of nowhere. 4 o'clock, I've come 16 miles. Went over to the cash box just on the off chance there was like food or something here. I think I'm gonna do the same trick as last night though, and not take enough water to camp. That way I have no choice but to get to the next source. There's another source in about like 7 miles. That should be easily doable. And it sounds like it's a fullish tank that you can get into. I've actually been kind of limping today. My legs have started hurting in funny ways. Just all the rough up and down terrain. Still moving though. That road you see in the background is actually the one that goes out to Hachita, which is the last civilization or the first that you can get to out here. I didn't really see any point to go there considering it was only 70-80 miles from Lordsburg though, and Lordsburg's right on trail. It is noticeably colder tonight, mostly because of the wind. Last time I checked I had 42 miles to the border. I really wish I could do an extra 10 or 15 miles tonight. I'm so ready to be done. Just me and a whole lot of cow eyes in the dark. Here's my water source for the night. Okay, that looks nice. And all my friends are over there. That's totally not creepy. Okay, quick water filter. I just grabbed a single 3-liter CNOC, filtered it really quick into the bottles, and now I'm moving because it's starting to get cold. Goal is to make it another 3 miles if I can manage that. It's been kind of slower going thanks to some sand. Okay, 7:30, made it 25 miles. I am tired and ready to get something to eat. And it's colder out here. It's going to be in the 20s tonight. So home sweet home. If I can do one more day like this, that'll set me up pretty good for the finish the following day.